Welcome back. Back with us today is Dr. Regan Tilley, functional family physician. Welcome back, Dr. Tilley.
Hi, Jessica. Happy to be back.
So we've talked a lot about trauma and how you can address that with your patients to help them with whole health and wellness. We've talked about with weight loss and addiction. And so now what I'd love to talk about is how are people getting empowered in this space?
Sure. So what I have found is oftentimes we give away our power, and that is what keeps us stuck, right?
Okay.
So we've talked about relationship, we've talked about addiction, we've talked about weight and the consequences on our health even. We've touched on that with autoimmune disease being somewhat linked to trauma, stress, all of those things. One of the things that has kind of stood out to me is when we feel like things are happening to us rather than for us. And that's kind of a foreign concept for a lot of people if they haven't been in the space of working on that holistic healing. Yeah. So what I believe is that things happen for us to learn lessons from.
Okay.
Things can happen to us, but if we let things happen to us, then we become the victim. We become something that was perpetrated on us. And that's not a good feel-good, it's not a feel-good space, right?
Right.
It's actually very disempowering to think that all of this universe is conspiring against you when in reality the universe conspires for you.
Yes.
And so one of my most interesting recent conversations in my group was about blame.
Okay.
Right? And we were talking about how blame isn't the right word. You know, something happened to you. You know, yes, we've experienced these things. We were going through our adverse childhood experiences. We were going through relationship issues and things that were done to us is kind of where people were coming from. And the question was, why can't I blame them for it if they did it to me?
Okay.
And it took me a moment to really articulate the answer, because surface level, if somebody did something, it's their fault, right? They did it to you. Okay, this is where we kind of move into this bigger, broader space of, again, this is one of those where it's not victim shaming. If something really awful happened to you, it's not to say you made it happen. That is not where I'm coming from at all, okay? What I am saying is that there were a lot of things that conspired for that person to be in the space to do the thing that caused you physical harm, mental harm, or emotional harm. Okay, so it's not to say that they get all of, like, it's a free pass, they get a free break, they can do whatever and have no consequences. That's not it at all.
Right.
What I am coming at is when we assign blame to other, we eliminate our power. We no longer have the ability to make a decision based on this event and how we should feel, respond, or grow from it. And so that's where empowerment comes from. When we're faced with adversity, when we choose to integrate it into our system as an experience instead of a wound. If we live wounded, we don't heal, okay? This is another space of what do we get out of it, kind of based on the last episode we talked about.
Yeah.
What do I get out of it if I stay wounded? So if you have a wound, it's like the dog that limps, right? It's like, oh, you poor puppy, let me pick you up and carry you. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we don't fully heal, we don't fully have to be responsible for ourselves. And if we're living in a fully healed power, think of all of the things that you could do, okay? And then we worry, oh, I'm gonna be held to this new standard. I have to be a high achiever all the time because I'm well and I'm healed and I don't have any of these traumas that I need to recover from anymore. And it's not really that, because things are going to come at us day by day. Life continues to happen for us. But if we choose to stay wounded, then we really never get the opportunity or give ourselves the opportunity to fully heal. Yeah.
That's a wonderful, wonderful description. I have so many things going through my head in that, because I've done, as you know, I've done a lot of this work and everything, and think of when people can even just make statements to you where you can feel like it's an insult or feel like it's wounding, where they're simply existing and being and just speaking their own mind, and then other people's wounds and patterns can also, like, the hurt people.
That's exactly true.
You know,
it's exactly true.
So it's how you then take people and teach them how to be present and acknowledge that, so that they can see what's theirs and what isn't.
Yes, and there's another side of that coin. Is you've heard the phrase "misery loves company," right?
Yeah.
So how often have you been sitting with a group of folks and there's somebody that's like, oh, can you believe such and such happened to me?
Yeah.
Right? And the whole table, like everything just comes down.
Yeah.
Or they want to be identified as this wound. They have to remind everyone, well, I was a child of incest, or I was a child of abuse, or I was a this, that, or the other. And when you continuously identify as that, that's how you're going to be perceived, and that's how you're going to feel. And so there comes some reward with that, though, because it's again, you poor thing, or how can I support you, or what can I do for you? Or you have this continuous perception of being wounded, right? So staying in the wound, it's like picking the scab off, right?
Yeah.
Continue to bleed, and then you get this giant scar, and it's so much harder to heal a big scar than it is a little scar. And so when we go through the spiritual and mental healing that's associated with this wound, we teach you how to apply the salve.
Yeah,
the
but
healing.
if that scar is gone, what am I going to do with my hand?
Well,
right? Like,
right.
so what am I going to do if that's actually, so I can see that in two ways.
Yeah.
If it's no longer there, who am I?
That's identity, yes.
Because I'm identifying with that.
Yes.
And I think the other part is what do I replace it with?
Correct. Yeah.
And I need to be, before you get to that healing spot, I really need to be seen for this wound. And I don't even necessarily know what that even means, but I need you to see it and comfort me.
Right. And that's where a lot of people stay stuck. They stay with the wound. It's like wearing the cast extra long, or keeping the Band-Aid on the splinter, right?
Yeah.
Look what I have. I have this boo-boo. Are you going to kiss it? Make it better,
Yeah.
right? And there's nothing wrong with giving a little love to that. But when it becomes your identity, that's when it becomes a problem, as well as for your healing, okay? You'll find that your friend groups sometimes dissipate, or you get stuck with the same kind of people who also have a ton of problems. You're like, oh my gosh, they're so toxic. All they have is trouble. It's only drama. Well, did you invite that drama in? Did you ask for some of it because you're sharing yours, right? So if we want to do that healing and nurturing, what you really have to do is put yourself with people who are ready to do that healing, who can see the wound, but say, I know how to fix that.
Yeah.
I want to help you heal from that, because staying in the wound, you're not going to progress, right? And so that scary part of who am I without the wound?
Yeah.
What I want to do is ask this really challenging question: is who do you want to be?
That's the best.
How do you want to be perceived? If you could be anything or anyone in the world, and other people would describe you, your friends, strangers, loved ones, who would you want to be? And that's how we start with that, okay? I want you to even write that out. What is your best day ever? Who is my best self ever? How do I respond to people? How do I present myself? How do I feel inside? What do I nourish my body with? What do I take in and absorb from my environment? You know, what am I feeding my brain with?
So these are what we want to be.
Yes.
This is how I want to present. Maybe even look at somebody that you admire and say, wow, I really, even though they have their own stuff, they have their own shadows,
everybody does.
But looking at that individual and just saying, okay, this is what I see that I admire in them, and maybe take these from this person, these characteristics from that person. Write it out?
Yes, I would love to have you write it out. Even vision board it, you know, draw it out, whatever.
Yeah.
And what I want you to do is then answer, why can't you?
What do people say?
Well, you know, I'm not young anymore, or I'm just not like that. I'm not made that way. Or, well, I have all this stuff going on and my family wouldn't let me. Or I'll be ashamed, or, you know, that's not very Christian of me. These are all the answers that I get. And when I really ask people to step into their power, let's take all of the excuses off the board. What if there was not an excuse to be had?
Yeah.
Okay?
How do people respond to that?
They get a little lighter. They feel a little free, because there's, you know, we're not looking to create like a mass murderer with no conscience. What we're trying to do is create your highest self out of non-judgment.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to do that, because that's not how we were brought up. Our belief systems and such, it's very demarcated, black and white, good, bad, happy, sad, anger, joy. You know, we have very black lines. We don't have a lot of gray. And when we start to embrace that gray, where we can kind of be without shame, it's very enlightening and it lifts the spirit. And so we get to play in that area quite a bit, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm smiling this whole episode because I'm loving this empowerment piece. And I think that people really need to realize it's not just when you no longer care what other people think about you. It's when you can take care of how you and the inside of you think about you as well.
Yes.
Give yourself that kindness, nurture yourself as if you're your own child.
Right. And inner child work is huge. And nurturing that wounded you has to happen.
Yeah.
But you know what? When we do that nurture, we go in and pick up that little you and give her a hug and say, good job, but you know what? Look what you turn into. You're amazing.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this anymore. You get to grow up now. You actually kind of release that from you. And you don't have to sit in that little headspace anymore.
Yeah.
And on that note of the, I don't care what anybody thinks of me, okay? We're not inviting negativity with that. What we're inviting is when I am my highest expression of who I am, it doesn't matter what people think of me because I know I'm living my highest and best.
Right.
It's not the curmudgeonly old, you know, I'm
I
picturing
don't care.
Maxine like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's like-
giving you the middle finger and,
Yes,
you know,
that's
like,
it.
we're not trying to invite you to that. Some
Yeah.
people want to live there, that's great, but there's more stuck in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we do, and it's so much fun.
No, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for being with us again
course,
today. I'll see you
yes.
next week.
Excellent.
Will you please let everyone know how they can reach you?
Sure. So my group program is Quantum Metabolic Reset, and you can find that at quantummetabolicreset.com. I also have a direct primary care family practice, licensed in Kansas and Missouri. You can find me at WHOLEhealthMHK.com.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Awesome.
Thank you for watching. Come back after these messages for our next guest.